When you picture opening a physical store, you probably see that charming canvas awning, the perfectly curated aesthetic.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you imagine the little bell chiming as the door swings open, and there you are, handing your beautifully packaged product directly to a smiling customer. I mean, when you think about taking a digital business into the physical world, that is the deeply romanticized, almost cinematic image that pops into our heads.
It's a very seductive vision. I mean, it feels tactile, right? After years of just, staring at Shopify dashboards and Facebook ad metrics, founders really crave something you can actually touch.
Right, but then you step into the actual operational reality of pulling a brand offline, and, well, that charming vision shatters almost instantly.
Yeah, pretty much on day one.
Because online, if something goes wrong, a customer gets a 404 error page.
Hmm.
But in the physical world, if something goes wrong, you have like 20 frustrated people standing in the rain, staring at a stressed-out seasonal worker holding a freezing iPad. The stakes are just physical.
They really are.
You're dealing with uncooperative Wi-Fi, terrifying city compliance codes, and just absolute inventory nightmares.
Which is precisely why so many of these temporary stores fail. I mean, founders treat physical retail exactly like digital retail, assuming they can just plug in a cash register and watch the money roll in.
Yeah, they underestimate it.
Completely. They completely underestimate the invisible architecture required to actually keep those physical doors open.
And that is exactly our mission today. Welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. We are pulling apart the mechanics of taking a brand offline. We spent the week analyzing a really dense, incredibly detailed 24-minute B2B guide titled Shopify Pop-Up Shop, Run a Profitable Temporary Store.
It's a goldmine of operational details.
It really is. So we are going to extract the unglamorous blueprint today, the tech stack, the hidden costs, the staffing traps, and the ultimate ROI. For anyone listening who has ever looked at an empty storefront and thought, what if? We're decoding the reality behind the romanticism. Okay, let's unpack this.
So before we even touch a barcode scanner or look at a lease agreement, every brand has to face a pretty massive identity crisis.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, you cannot choose your neighborhood, your square footage, or your tech until you know the exact mechanism of what you are trying to achieve and why you are doing it.
Right. And looking at the operational blueprints in the source, there are 4 very distinct physical formats you can choose from.
Yep, 4 distinct models.
First, you have the weekend market booth. So your classic folding table under a tent at a local craft fair for a couple of days.
Classic.
Then the multi-week kiosk, or what the industry calls a retail merchandising unit. Think of those branded standalone carts in the middle of a busy mall concourse.
Right, the RMUs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Third is the in-store residency, which is taking over a specific shop-in-shop corner inside an already established retailer. And finally, the multi-month flagship, which is an 8 to 12-week short-term lease on a trendy street that looks and functions like a permanent store.
And the thing you have to realize is those aren't just different sizes of the same business. They are entirely different organisms.
Wow.
And they map directly to the 4 honest reasons a brand should ever run a pop-up in the first place, which are customer acquisition, creating an IRL brand statement for the press, testing new products or pricing, and discovering wholesale buyers.
Okay, so 4 formats, 4 reasons.
Exactly. And the most common pitfall, the trap that swallows just so much venture capital, is a brand deciding they want to achieve all 4 of those goals at the same exact time.
Oh, right. Treating a weekend market booth like a multi-month flagship is basically like using a sledgehammer to hang a picture frame. It's the wrong tool, and you're just going to do a lot of expensive damage.
That is a perfect analogy. You end up muddying the waters. I mean, if you want wholesale buyers to discover your brand, your presentation needs to be immaculate, polished, and fully scaled.
Like a flagship.
Right. But if you are testing a prototype to see if people will pay $40 for it, you actually want a slightly raw conversational environment where you can ask the customer for immediate feedback. You cannot do both in the same room.
That makes sense.
So the golden rule we keep seeing in the data is this: define one single KPI before you even start looking at real estate. Define one key performance indicator, and once you pick it, start measuring everything else.
Okay, I want to challenge one of those goals, though.
Customer acquisition.
Because we live in an era of algorithmic, hyper-targeted digital advertising. I can go online right now and target a very specific demographic down to their zip code and their browsing habits.
Yep, you can.
So why on earth are walk-in shoppers who might just be wandering by to get out of the rain suddenly more valuable than precisely targeted cold digital traffic?
Well, it comes down to the fundamental psychology of human interaction. We are sensory creatures, right?
Yeah.
A digital ad is two-dimensional. It just interrupts your scrolling.
That's an annoyance.
Exactly. But when someone walks into a physical space, they are actively opting into an immersive environment. They can feel the weight of the fabric. They can smell the notes in a fragrance. They can see how the light hits a piece of jewelry.
They're experiencing the brand without a screen acting as a filter.
Precisely. And that tactile sensory experience builds immediate, profound trust. So when that person eventually reaches the checkout counter, the email address or the phone number you capture from them is worth astronomically more than a contact acquired through some online form.
Oh, wow.
Because the relationship has a physical foundation, they remember the music playing, the conversation with the staff, their lifetime value as a customer fundamentally changes because the acquisition happened in 3 dimensions.
Okay, that reframes the whole endeavor. But to actually capture that value, you have to build the infrastructure to pull it off. Which brings us to the hidden foundation of the pop-up, the inventory, and the tech.
Yes, the silent killer.
Because the source material makes it incredibly clear that a bad tech setup isn't just an annoyance, it will literally tank the entire operation.
What's fascinating here is that the most powerful feature of this entire retail system is that it shouldn't feel like a new system at all. If a brand is using a platform like Shopify, the POS software is pulling from the exact same central brain.
Right.
It's the same product catalog, the same customer data, and the same reporting dashboards that run the global online business, just, manifesting in a temporary physical space.
But the crucial, heavily underlined step in the guide is that you have to explicitly tell that central brain that you're opening a new location.
You have to.
You have to go into the system's admin settings and create a discrete, defined location for the pop-up before you scan a single item.
I really cannot overstate how vital that is. If a founder skips that step just to save like 5 minutes of setup time, all the sales from the pop-up are going to be logged as if they happened at the main e-commerce warehouse.
And then a month later, when the accountant is trying to figure out why the online conversion rate plummeted or why the warehouse is missing 300 units of a top-selling sweater, it turns into an absolute nightmare of post-event archaeology.
Archaeology is the perfect word for it. You are sifting through digital ruins, just trying to untangle a massive knot of data.
Yikes.
Yeah. By defining a distinct physical location in the software, you isolate the inventory. Which brings up the golden rule of moving your product, transfer your stock with hard quantities, not vibes.
Transferring stock with vibes.
Yeah.
Just, throwing 24 boxes into the back of a rented van and figuring you'll count it all later.
It happens constantly, and it creates a cascading failure. Because if a blue medium t-shirt sells out at the pop-up, but the system doesn't know it's sold out locally because the inventory is pooled with the warehouse, the staff won't know to restock it.
And you lose the sale.
Exactly. You need per location low stock alerts, and that requires an audit trail.
And I guess that audit trail dictates the physical hardware you bring to the venue, too. But I want to push back on this hardware list for a second.
Okay, go for it.
We are looking at recommendations for iPads, specialized tap-and-chip readers, receipt printers, barcode scanners, heavy cash drawers. If someone running a 2-day craft stall is listening, do they really need to buy a barcode scanner and a cash drawer?
Absolutely not. And the system is designed to scale down just as easily as it scales up. Modularity is the key here.
Okay.
If you are that artisan at a weekend market, the entire operation can run on an iPhone. Depending on your region, you might not even need an external card reader. The phone itself can act as a contactless receiver.
Oh, that's convenient.
Very. And the software tier matches the need. A basic setup uses POS Lite, which handles simple checkouts and receipts perfectly, and it's free.
So when do you actually need all the heavy, expensive gear? When do you upgrade to the Pro version of the software?
The tipping point is complexity, specifically around staffing and inventory. You need the Pro tier, which is paid per location when you have multiple employees rotating through shifts, because you need role-based permissions to stop, say, a temp worker from accidentally refunding a massive order.
Makes sense.
And hardware-wise, the barcode scanner becomes utterly non-negotiable the second you cross the 50 SKU threshold.
Let's define SKU for everyone really quick.
Sure, it stands for stock keeping unit. It's the unique identifier for every single variation of your product. So if you sell a shirt in 5 colors and 4 sizes, that is 20 different SKUs.
Got it.
If you have fewer than 50 total variations, a staff member can easily just tap the picture of the item on an iPad screen. It's fast enough.
But once you cross 50, scrolling through pages of tiny photos to find the right green sweater in a size medium while a line of people just stares at you, that's where the human error creeps in.
Oh, the human error multiplies. The scanner eliminates that friction. It speeds up the line, it prevents inventory mismatches, and most importantly, it makes the end-of-day inventory count a simple process rather than a multi-hour punishment for an already exhausted staff.
Speaking of exhausted staff, there is one technological failure that will instantly defeat the best hardware and the most perfectly counted inventory. It's the ultimate boogeyman of physical retail, terrible venue Wi-Fi.
Oh, it is the single most common reason profitable concepts bleed money. You rent a beautiful brick-and-mortar space, you open the doors, and you realize the walls are thick concrete and the venue's router is like a decade old.
But the software has an offline mode, right?
Yeah.
Can't you just keep ringing people up?
Offline mode is a safety net, not a strategy. It'll securely cache basic credit card swipes to process later when you reconnect, but you completely lose the ability to look up inventory, sync your counts, or process complex returns.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, if you are operating a modern retail environment, you simply cannot rely on the venue's infrastructure. Bringing a dedicated, high-speed mobile hotspot and physically testing the connection strength in the space before opening day is a non-negotiable step.
Okay, so you've isolated your tech. Your inventory is tracked, your iPads are connected to your backup hotspot, but an iPad doesn't smile at a customer.
No, it doesn't.
And a barcode scanner doesn't manage a line that suddenly snakes around the block. That brings us to surviving the floor, because the human element really dictates whether the day is a triumph or a disaster.
Pop-up staffing implodes on the exact same avoidable mistakes every single time. And it usually starts with something as innocent as shared employee logins.
Which is why the operational guidelines insist on unique, individual PIN codes for every single staff member to access the register.
Exactly.
Even if they were just a temp worker hired for a 4-hour shift.
Yes. Because if 3 different employees are ringing up sales under the founder's admin login and a cash drawer comes up $200 short at the end of the night, you have absolutely zero accountability. You have no idea who made the mistake or, if it was intentional.
Right. And that level of discipline has to extend to how these temporary workers are trained too. And this is where I think founders get deeply in their own way. They hand a 22-year-old art student a 50-page brand manual covering the intricate history of their supply chain.
It's an information overload that literally causes paralysis on the floor. When you are hiring short-term event staff, human behavior dictates that you have to keep it ruthlessly simple.
Keep it simple.
Right. The data suggests a strict 30-minute training script. You strip away the philosophy and focus entirely on the 4 mechanical flows that make up 95% of the job.
Which are?
Exactly how to ring up a sale, how to take a credit card, how to correctly capture an email address in the system, and how to execute a return. That's it.
Here's where it gets really interesting. That ruthless simplicity isn't just about saving training time. It is a survival tactic designed for a very specific phenomenon. The operational breakdown refers to it as the brutal 90-minute peak.
Yeah, every physical retail location has a peak. It might be the lunchtime rush in a financial district or a Saturday afternoon wave in a trendy neighborhood. But for 90 minutes, the store goes from completely empty to absolute chaos.
And staffing for average foot traffic is like building a bridge for average weather. It seems totally fine until the 90-minute storm hits. Right?
Exactly.
The minute that rush arrives, if your staff is struggling to remember store policy, the whole thing collapses. The line stops moving and shoppers just put the merchandise down and walk away.
Which is why resolving bottlenecks before they happen is so critical. Take the concept of a split tender transaction.
Walk us through that. How does that break the line?
Well, a split tender is when a customer walks up with a $50 item, hands the cashier a crumpled $20 bill, an Apple payphone, and asks if they can cover the remaining balance with a digital gift card they have on an email receipt somewhere.
Oh, nightmare.
Right. If your temporary staff hasn't physically practiced that exact complex flow on the iPad, they will freeze and the line will completely stall.
The same goes for ambiguous policies, too. During that 90-minute storm, there is no time to call the manager to debate whether an item is eligible for a return.
No time at all.
You have to define those rules, return windows, tipping policies, split tender procedures beforehand, and literally print them on an index card taped underneath the register. When an employee has 20 impatient people staring at them, they shouldn't have to think. They just execute.
And that disciplined execution has to carry all the way through to the moment the doors finally lock, the end-of-day reconciliation.
Counting the cash.
Counting the cash drawer, running the daily sales report on the software, and having the manager and the staff member sign a physical daily reconciliation slip before anyone is allowed to go home.
Wow, before they leave.
Yes, it forces the math to be settled while the memory of the day's chaos is still fresh. It entirely prevents that incredibly awkward phone call a week later when the bank deposit doesn't match the spreadsheet.
Okay, so we have the staff drilled and ready. The peak rush is managed. The cash drawer is perfectly balanced. You would think you were in the clear at that point.
You would think so.
But if you didn't do the math or the paperwork before you sign the lease, a city inspector will walk in and wipe out your entire profit margin instantly. We have to examine the paperwork that bites.
It is the least glamorous part of the process, but it is the foundation of profitability. Choosing a venue is an economic and compliance minefield. And this raises an important question: how do merchants actually view venue costs? Because the most dangerous trap finders fall into is confusing foot traffic with dwell time.
Okay, so give us an example. You look at a space in a major subway transit hub. The landlord tells you 100,000 people walk past this spot every single day. The foot traffic is massive.
Right.
But every single one of those people is sprinting to catch a train. The amount of time they're actually willing to stop, browse, and engage is essentially zero.
Compare that to a curated Sunday street fair. The total foot traffic might only be 5,000 people all day, but those people have nowhere to be. They're holding coffees, strolling, talking to vendors. The dwell time is huge.
Ah, I see.
A brand selling impulse buy snacks might thrive in that transit hub, but a brand selling premium, handcrafted leather goods will totally die there. You have to match your product to the psychology of the traffic.
This makes me wonder about how we actually calculate the value of the space. Because the natural instinct is to just hunt for the absolute lowest rent possible, right?
And cheap rent is almost always an illusion. If a landlord offers you a raw, vacant space for a suspiciously low daily rate, but you arrive to find there are no working power outlets, no functioning Wi-Fi, and a requirement that you purchase a massive supplemental insurance policy just to open the doors,
Yeah.
that cheap space isn't cheap anymore.
By the time you rent a generator, buy 3 mobile hotspots, and pay an insurance broker, your real operational cost has eclipsed what you would have paid for a premium turnkey venue that had everything built in.
Exactly. To protect against that illusion, the operational framework provides a strict budget calculator. You have to isolate all your fixed costs, the rent, the hardware rentals, the staff wages, the travel, and compare it to your break-even daily revenue requirement.
And the hard rule of thumb here is brutal. If your break-even number requires you to hit more than 70% of your optimistic expected daily revenue, the venture is too risky.
You have absolutely zero margin for error at that point. If it rains on a Saturday or if the street is unexpectedly closed for construction, you will lose money on the entire month. If the math says 70%, you have to ruthlessly negotiate the rent down, shorten the duration of the pop-up, or just have the discipline to walk away.
And even if the math works beautifully, you still have to navigate the local bureaucracy.
Oh, the paperwork.
Right. There are 4 distinct compliance items that constantly trip up digital brands moving offline. Let's dig into why these matter so much. First up, temporary vendor permits.
Most municipalities require a specific short-term permit to conduct business. They usually cost between $25 and $200. Founders often assume they can fly under the radar, but cities actively patrol commercial districts.
Yeah, they do.
The fine for operating without one will easily wipe out an entire weekend's profit, and they can force you to shut down immediately.
Then there is the sales tax trap. This one catches so many online merchants. Let's say my brand is headquartered in a state with no sales tax, like Delaware or Oregon, and I travel to Chicago to run a 3-day pop-up.
You have to charge and remit the venue rate local sales tax for that exact spot in Chicago. You are suddenly subject to their jurisdiction. Now, the beauty of modern point-of-sale software is that if you properly set up that new location in the system, like we discussed earlier, it will automatically calculate the correct local tax rates based on the zip code. But you still have to actually file the paperwork.
Third is general liability insurance. We aren't just talking about protecting the inventory from theft here. If a heavy display mirror falls over and injures a customer, or someone trips over an extension cord, a standard digital business policy will not cover a physical retail location.
No, it won't.
You need a dedicated, short-term $1 million or $2 million liability rider, which usually costs around $50 to $300.
And finally, category-specific regulations. If your online brand sells pre-packaged gourmet food, cosmetics, or anything involving alcohol, the local health department regulations will dictate everything from where you can put a sink to how you hand out samples.
Okay, let me pause and inject some extreme skepticism here.
Right.
We're looking at razor-thin margins. One bad thunderstorm ruins the math. The city paperwork is mind-numbingly tedious. The Wi-Fi is a constant threat. If the margins are this razor-thin, why on earth would a comfortable online brand subject themselves to this?
Because the entire premise of the pop-up is a Trojan horse. The ultimate secret of physical retail for a digital brand is that the event is not actually about the money you make at the cash register that day.
It's not about the day of revenue.
It rarely is. A pop-up that generates massive pure profit strictly from register sales is an anomaly. The real metric, the true return on investment, is what happens in the 90 days after you lock the doors. We are talking about the lifetime value, the LTV, of the specific cohort of customers whose emails and phone numbers you captured in person.
Which brings us full circle to that concept of sensory trust from earlier. We established that an in-person connection fundamentally changes how a customer views your brand. But you have to systematically harvest that connection.
Exactly.
A source material outlines a very specific three-phase marketing cadence to turn a physical interaction into a CRM asset.
Right, and it starts 2 weeks before you even arrive. You mine your existing customer database and isolate everyone who lives within a 50-mile radius of the pop-up venue. You run geo-targeted social ads and send highly personalized emails to those existing fans, creating a baseline of guaranteed foot traffic.
Then, during the actual event, the goal is capturing the people who just wander in. And I love this detail from the breakdown. The absolute cheapest, highest return piece of marketing hardware you can invest in isn't a digital screen.
No, it's so simple.
It's literally a printed acrylic sign with a massive QR code pointing to your online store, placed right next to the register.
Because the reality is that 80% of the people who walk into your pop-up are going to look around, touch a few things, and leave without buying anything. If they walk out the door, they are gone forever. But if that QR code offers them a 10% discount to join the mailing list while they are standing there soaking in the vibe of the store, you have successfully captured their intent.
But the real heavy lifting happens at the register itself. The staff has to be trained to actually ask for the email address when processing a transaction.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that lead capture is the long-term asset. That email address feeds into automated digital marketing flows that will generate revenue for months, effectively paying back the cost of your rent long after the temporary store is gone.
But, and this is a massive but, that only works if the cashier physically tags that customer's profile in the point-of-sale system to indicate they were acquired at the pop-up. If they just dump that email into the general digital newsletter list, the magic is lost.
Because it triggers the third phase, the post-event flow. When someone buys something in person, they shouldn't receive your generic Tuesday promotional blast. They should receive a specific thank you sequence that acknowledges the shared physical experience, like, hey, it was amazing meeting you at the Brooklyn pop-up this weekend. Here's the story behind the jacket you bought.
Or a back-end stock waitlist, like, we saw you looking at the green sweater that sold out on Saturday. Here's a private link to pre-order it online. You are continuing the physical conversation in a digital space.
And when you analyze the data 90 days later, you will find that the cohort of customers acquired at that physical location open emails at a higher rate, return fewer items, and spend more over their lifetime than a standard digital cohort. That difference in lifetime value is the true hidden profit of the pop-up.
So what does this all mean? When you synthesize all these mechanics, the pop-up is essentially a physical, three-dimensional customer acquisition ad. You might lose money on the day, but you win the quarter.
It completely reframes how a founder should look at physical retail. It is an immersive, high-conversion marketing channel wrapped in a storefront.
Let's distill the blueprint for you. If you are preparing to pull your digital brand into the physical world, here are the golden rules we've extracted today. 1. Pick exactly one KPI to measure success and pick the matching format. 2. Set up a discrete Shopify location to prevent an inventory nightmare. 3. Buy the smallest, most modular hardware kit necessary, but never seep the barcode scanner if you have more than 50 SKUs. And 4. Train your staff to obsess over capturing emails, not just dollars.
It requires an incredible amount of operational discipline, But adhering to that unglamorous blueprint is the sole difference between the brands that use physical retail to scale and the brands that pack up a van full of unsold merchandise and vow never to try it again.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. A trend that is bubbling just under the surface of all this data. Right now, digital customer acquisition costs the price you pay for social media ads are skyrocketing. They're becoming ferociously expensive and less predictable. So, could short-term, hyper-targeted physical pop-ups soon flip from being a fun brand experiment to becoming the primary, most cost-effective way for digital native brands to actually survive and find their true fans?
It's a profound shift in the ecosystem. The physical street corner might legitimately become the new top-of-funnel strategy.
It certainly makes you look at your city differently. The next time you are walking down the street and you notice an empty storefront or a vacant patch of concrete at a weekend market, don't just see it as vacant space. See it as a blank canvas for your next great experiment. You just have to make sure you look past that romantic canvas awning and focus on the rigid, invisible architecture that actually keeps the doors open. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.